Niner Uniform Delta X-Ray. My name is Matt, and I welcome you to the 2 a.m. net. The purpose of this net is to promote the use of amplitude modulation, and also to establish part of this band as a place for AM activity in this area. Everyone is invited to listen, and licensed amateurs who can do so legally are encouraged to check in. We listen in the AM mode and transmit in the AM mode where possible. If you cannot transmit in AM, we encourage you to listen in AM and transmit in FM. If you are transmitting in FM, please adjust your transmit frequency a couple kCs above or below from our receive frequency. This facilitates the use of slope detection, that is, demodulating your FM signal with our AM receivers. When checking in, please announce your call sign in standard phonetics. Again, this is KC9UDX. My name is Matt, and I will now begin accepting check-ins. Any stations wishing to check in, please come now.
Good evening, Matt, W9JCC.
Got one so far. Welcome, Frank, our most loyal check-in. W9JCC. Do we have anybody else? All right, hearing none so far. It's been a busy week and a half, or well, yeah, a little over a week or whatever. Been a busy long time for me here, Frank. So I almost missed the net tonight. I was working on some other things here. New addition to our family last Monday. My son Miles was born, so that you can imagine that's part of what is making things busy around here. Frank, I will turn it to you, W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, very good, Matt. KC9UDX, W9JCC, and congratulations on son Miles. Like you said, he's about a week old. And yeah, that can keep you busy. And well, good. I wonder how many kids you have there, Matt. KC9UDX, W9JCC.
We got three here. Lorelei, who may become a radio amateur sooner or later here, we'll see. And Merlin, who we call Owen, and now Miles. We have a viewer on YouTube, a guy who is somewhere here in the state, I'm not sure exactly where, calls himself Bratwurst on YouTube, and he commented, but I can't bring up the comments now for some reason. Okay. He says hello, live from Waukesha, as Texans say it. Oh boy, no, it went away again. I guess I'm going to stop playing with that before I cause some other issues here. Anyway, let's see if we have any more check-ins. If anybody. All right. And Bratwurst also says congrats. So I will say thank you to him. And I guess I spent the day here working in the driveway. I put a new exhaust on my car. I wanted to swap out the transfer case, but I ran into a snag doing that. And I'm glad I didn't, because for whatever reason, I spent all day and all I could get done was putting on 2 tires and changing out the exhaust. So there's no way I would have had time to do the transfer case. And I'll tell you what, the heat did not agree with me. I was dying out there. I came in at about 6:30, went in the pool for about a half hour, came in and spent some time with the family, ate dinner, and here I am. Like I say, I got here at the very last second, Frank. I'll turn it back to you, Frank. KC9UDX.
Okay, Matt, KC9UDX, W9JCC. And you got a pool. That's nice to have in this kind of weather. That's one thing we don't have here. We do live a little bit on a higher spot here. It's not the highest spot around, but it's up high enough where if there's any can get out there and put the umbrella up on the picnic table and go out and have a cup of coffee or something, but too muggy and humid. And even the XYL, who likes to get out there and do a lot of gardening and flower tending and so forth, she's been staying inside a lot more than usual. And I can imagine you would get pretty heated up if you're working in a car outdoors, doing some fairly heavy work. I try to take a walk every day, and I've been waiting till like after supper, around supper time, to do it. And it's not too bad then, but it could be a little bit drier out there. So I put the tiny, or not the tiny chat, but I put the YouTube on there, map, so I can hear myself a little bit delayed there. Not much. Oh, it's quite a bit delayed. Yeah, I know one night we were on here and it was delayed only sounded like maybe a couple tenths of a second, but sounds like a little bit longer delay here today. Anyway, back to net control, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank. And yeah, I was into my network last, we talked about this last month, to see if I could figure out why there's so much latency. But things have been going too fast here for me, and I didn't get a chance to do that. I did do a complete reboot on the phone or phablet or tablet or whatever you call it that's doing the YouTube stream. And I wiped out some software that was needlessly running in the background. And things seem to be a little bit better. But yeah, there's a delay, and I think there's always going to be some delay, but maybe there's something I can do about it, maybe there's not. We'll see. I'll do some more playing around. And maybe you can read the comments on there better than I can. For some reason they show up in the middle of the picture here and then they fade out right away, so I barely get to read them. And they're all gone now, of course, and I don't know how to bring them up, and if I try to do that I might stop the stream. Don't want to do that. And I was going to say something else about something you said, and now I guess I should have wrote it down. But let's see if we have any more check-ins. Anybody else wants to check into the 2 a.m. net, come now, please. All right, there's Dale, AB9DW. Dale, go ahead and take a turn from KC9UDX.
All right there, Matt. How are you this evening? This is AB9DW, and we just got back from a long weekend vacation, so I don't have any ham radio information in my head right now, but it popped up on my calendar that today is the 2 a.m. net, so I thought I'd jump on and see who was around. So for now, we'll go back to you, Matt, for AB9DW.
All right, thank you, Dale. And you're here. So 30. And for some reason, the YouTube thing just sort of reset itself. I don't know what that was all about. Anyway, audio is perfectly legible, but the background noise is kind of loud. Not objectionable. It's perfectly doable. And what I did want to bring up tonight, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, I think we might be in for an early winter. Just looking at the insects. A couple nights in a row I went outside looking for meteorites. Of course you really can't see anything from here. I didn't have a opportunity to drive somewhere where I could see better. There's too much background light here. But one thing I did notice is that there were no insects or no mosquitoes or flies or just about anything else out at night. I mean late at night, in the middle of the night. And that's not unusual, or not usual, I would say, for this time of year normally. And Bratwurst says he used to have a Helicrafters radio that he sold for $15. Okay, I've got a Helicrafters 2 meter AM transmitter and receiver here somewhere. I should do something with that. Anyway, I noticed 2 days I was outside doing a bunch of work and disturbing some large installations of wasps. And the wasps were swarming around me while I was working and not bothering me at all, not stinging me anyway. I did some work on a gutter. I moved a downspout, and there's a pretty large nest of those things inside the fascia board behind the gutter, and they were swarming in and out of there like crazy the whole time I was working, and they were bouncing off my arms and everything, and I never once got stung. And then weeds in one area and discovered a bunch of them, and the same thing, they were all kind of bouncing off of me. There were so many of them, and I never once got stung, which maybe it's just a blessing that I'm not getting stung. Maybe for some reason they don't want to sting, but it almost seems like it's late enough in the year that they don't want to do that anymore. So I wonder what you guys have noticed on that. But first, let's see if we have any more check-ins for the 2 a.m. net. Come now, please. Hearing none, back to the top of the list, Frank, W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And this is W9JCC. Interesting you should bring that up about the insects there, Matt. My ex-wife was just mentioning that she thought we were going to get an early winter because she said she saw some spider webs out there, and I guess that's her indicator. And when you said you weren't seeing any insects, I was thinking maybe there's some bats over there because they usually do a pretty good job of taking care of the mosquitoes and insects. And yeah, I can see bratwurst here on the screen. I wonder where bratwurst is located. Is he out in some other part of the country or world, or is he local here? So maybe you can put that up there and let us know where he is. So back to net control, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank. And we do have plenty of insects here during the daytime. There are still plenty of mosquitoes during the day, but they have disappeared at night. Ouch! I just got a large cramp in my leg. Guess I did too much work outside today without drinking enough water. But got to get some Gatorade or something. Yeah, there's plenty of bugs during the day. It's just they seem to go away at night, which in August anyway, I don't think that's normal. I think it's still the time of year where they should be pretty pesty at night. Something just popped up on the YouTube comments. Maybe you could read it there. I can't. It's obscured on my screen here, but I know bratwurst is somewhere here in the state of Wisconsin. I don't exactly know where. I think some of his YouTube videos kind of give away an area, and I'm not exactly sure where off the top of my head at this point. So maybe that was him mentioning in a comment. I don't know. This kind of stinks. I don't get to see the comments. I should actually bring another device down here just so I can look at that part of it. Dale, it's your turn from KC9UDX.
All right, then, Matt. Sorry about the delay there. I was using some YouTube video and forgot to respond to the radio. I guess that's sort of par for the course, huh? Well, let's see here. I did want to give you a status update on the amplifier that I purchased, it's going to be about a month ago now. I used it for the last West Side radio class, MRAC 10-meter net, 5 years ago. I think it was 5 years ago. And it increased, and I was also doing some testing with Bill on W298. And he reported that the difference between no amplifier and with amplifier was about 3 S units. So it went from, I think he said it went from S6 to S9. And I think 1 S unit is it 3 dB? I'm not quite sure. So if that holds true, then and it's 3 dB for each S unit, then it went up to 9 dB. So I thought that was pretty good. But that's really all I have from a ham radio standpoint. I'll tell you a little bit about my trip over the long weekend here on the next floor on Back to Matt 89
All right, thank you, Dale. And I know there's a published standard for what S units are supposed to be. In my experience, every radio I've had here I've tried to calibrate the S meter, and I think I've got some of them. Some of them just plain will not adhere to that standard, and clearly most of them were not really designed to. Now I have a lot of older stuff here, other than some of the FM gear, and I know that the S meters on the FM gear are pretty worthless. But I don't know about other radios out there, like whatever Bill has. Maybe they have accurate S meters on that stuff, maybe they don't. So some of that S meter stuff is kind of subjective. And I hear a lot of people say that amplifiers aren't worth it because all it does is, just like you said, bring you up three S units or whatever. And what's 3 S units? It doesn't make a difference. Well, my answer to that is always that, it could make or break, a good copy, and that's the important thing. And the other thing that I always think about with amplifiers is guys complain that you shouldn't be running one because it's more power than you need. And the FCC is intentionally vague about about the law. It says that we're not allowed to use more power than is needed for the desired communications, and if the desired communications mean bending the needle on the S meter, then and that's what you desire, then I guess that's legal to run however much power you want within the legal limits. So anyway, I haven't turned my amplifier on and I can't remember how long here now. My HF antenna is actually still up. It's disappointing that I don't get any time to come down here and operate. This is the first year that I've had it up for so long. I put it up in late winter, I think, and it's still up. So I guess I should keep my mouth shut. Maybe we'll get a windstorm tomorrow and I'll bring it down or something. I don't know. The power meter on my amplifier, the big HF one I've got, burned out the last time I used it. I'd like to say it was a carbon composition resistor. It went up in flames. There was quite a show inside the thing, which kind of spooked me while I was operating. But it turns out to just be part of the meter circuit. Nothing else seems to be affected, and I have not had an opportunity to open it up and look inside there and see what it is. I hope it was a carbon composition resistor and not the windings on the meter, the Arsenval movement. So one of these days I'll pull that out and open up the lid and take a look. We're at the bottom of the list. Let's see if we have any more check-ins for the 2 a.m. net. Come now, please.
Whiskey Bravo 9. Bravo, Whiskey Papa.
Welcome, Dave. WB9BWP, go ahead and take a turn from KC9UDX.
Okay. Just got down here a couple of minutes ago. I heard, I came in on Dale, so there's a time frame there. And I got the YouTube thing fired up. There's a few seconds, a couple of seconds delay. Not a lot. Almost didn't come back, or didn't check in here, as I got the logging program running and does spots and stuff too. And there's a second station of 4, a special event thing I stumbled across, I think it was last week. I had no idea that Illinois has had multiple state capitals, and for some reason they're actually celebrating some anniversary regarding all the different capitals. Anyway, I worked one of those stations last week, and I see another one is on 40 right now. Only Illinois would have multiple state capitals. I shouldn't say that. I haven't studied state capitals enough to really tell the difference. But anyway, when I see special event stations, I work them just because I don't always send for any kind of thing, certificate or anything, depending on what it is. The S-meter discussion, I just have a tiny bit, I guess, to throw in on that one. There's a, I don't know if it's a standard. Collins came up with a number many years ago, it specified a voltage level, and supposedly, and I haven't studied any of this either, Kenwood stays pretty close to that. ICOM is the worst as far as up their S meters a whole bunch. So that anytime anybody's comparing, or a lot of people say, well, gee, that signal's stronger on my ICOM because it's, the S meter reads higher. It's because the ICOM S meter reads higher. And other than that, that's about all I know on S meters. And I guess that's probably good enough for this round here as I get everything settled in down here. And maybe I'll jump over and see if I can work that out. No, I got it. At least that one I know it should be pretty much for sure. If I can't make it down there, I got big trouble. Anyway, this is WB9 BWP.
All right, thank you, Dave. And Wisconsin has had multiple capitals. Now I think I should know this stuff. I'm going to sound like a fool here because I don't really know, and I should. But I'd like to say that the former Wisconsin capital was only the capital for one day. And I'm drawing a complete blank on where it was. I'd like to say Dodgeville, but that doesn't seem right. It's got to be somewhere in that area or something. So maybe one of you guys knows, but I know Wisconsin has had multiple capitals as well. And I think you're right that it was Collins that came up with that standard. I do seem to remember reading that. I also remember reading that even the Collins gear, it does not adhere to that very well, but most of them are adjustable to the point where you can make them accurate to that. And I see somebody's commenting again, but I can't see it because there's a software keyboard on the screen and it's blocking all of the comments. So maybe you guys can see the comments. I can't. That's disappointing. I think that I'm the most important person to be reading those and I can't see them. Anyway, we're at the bottom of the list again. Do we have any more check-ins for the 2 a.m. net? Come now, please. Hearing none. We had a couple of guys from Illinois last month. I don't know how good band conditions are. Maybe we'll hear from them. Maybe we won't. Dave, your signal is a solid 5, which I think is pretty normal. And no unusual noise that I can hear at all in the band tonight, which may mean that it's not very open. I don't know. I don't know where most of that noise comes from. Otherwise, we'll go back to the top of the list. Frank, W9JCC, it's your turn again from KC9UDX.
Okay, thank you, Matt, and good evening to Dave. First of all, the signal reports, Matt, you're 40 over 9. Dale, you're 5 and 6. And Dave, Q5 and S0. You're not moving the S meter, but I can copy you just fine. So, and yeah, there were a couple comments by Bratwurst on there. One of them is have you used an antenna loader? I have used several. I'm not using one here on this band, but although it's the vertical's at the top of the tower, so it turns with the antenna, but it doesn't really change anything. And I have a book with the original hold on. I don't know what that means. That was the last comment there I saw. Anyway, as far as the S-unit thing, well, if you double the power, you're going to get increase. And I think, don't hold me to this one, I'm pretty sure that the S-unit is a 6 dB per S-unit, but I haven't thought about it for a long time, but that's my recollection. And as far as the carbon comp resistors, those kind of take their toll when they get really old. I had some trouble with those on my Heathkit SB 401 transmitter. They were involved with the push-to-talk and the Vox circuits, which were almost identical circuits. And there were some, I think there were 60 or 100 ohm resistors in there. And after the years, they changed very radically. They got to the point where they were almost, I would say, at least 50% higher than they were supposed to be. And I couldn't actuate the rocks or push the torque after a while. And it was a good thing I had to lower the value because I couldn't get at the bottom of the board any place to change the resistor out. So I had to just tack on calculate and tack on a resistor over the tops of the two resistors, and then everything worked fine. And Dale, we're looking forward to hearing about your trip. And with that, as far as S meters go too, I've got a variety of receivers. The Heathkit 301, the Carlin 7584, and the FT1000D. And what I do with the 7584 is I calibrate it to the 1000D. I don't know what it's calibrated to, but it's the newest one I have, so that's what I did. Anyway, back to net control, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank. As far as antenna rotators, I've used one once, an Armstrong rotator. I don't have any horizontal antennas, horizontally polarized antennas anyway, that are small enough to rotate anymore. I'd like to get one just for this net. I think that would be very useful. But for now, I have an omnidirectional vertical antenna, and I suppose I could probably rotate that if I was really ambitious, but I would gain nothing. And the feed line is not arranged in such a way to make rotating feasible. Anyway, I think you're right, Frank, about the 6 dB per S units. That sort of sounds familiar. And I was going to say here now, just like with the S units and with the different capitals and all this other stuff, all of these things that I've done a lot of reading on that I just don't recall very well. Carbon composition resistors, I've read a lot about those too. The higher in value they are, the more they drift upward in value. And as far as I recall, what causes that is actually they dry out, which seems a little odd. You wouldn't think that carbon would change its resistance being wet or dry. But I guess if you keep them from drying out, then they don't change in value. And I guess you can, or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe they get moisture from the air. I'm not sure anymore, but it's something to do with moisture that causes their value to change. And you can still buy quarter and half watt, I think, carbon composition resistors, although that's getting harder to do. And honestly, what I have found, if you buy them from China, if you cut them open, they are carbon film resistors inside. They just look like carbon composition resistors because of the plastic housing on the outside. I haven't cut open some that are not from China, or at least come from reputable sellers, to see, and I assume they're not like that. But at least some of the ones that I bought from China were definitely like that. So if you buy a large quantity, it probably pays to cut a few open just to see what they really are. But I know you can't buy any of the higher power capacity ones anymore, and I guess the reason is for fire prevention, which is not such a bad thing, although it is nice to have carbon composition resistors when you're putting together or restoring an old radio that's supposed to have them in there. And before I babble too much here, let's hear Dale's story. Dale, if you're ready to tell us a story, I think we're anxious to hear about your travels. So AB9DW, it's your turn from KC9UDX.
Alrighty, well, kind of been listening to the radio to see when the break is going to occur. So AB9DW here, and first of all, Matt, you're about F0, so you're not moving the S meter at all on my end, and I'm copying about 50%. So I'm using the YouTube video to do the fill, and that actually works out pretty well. So thanks for setting that up. And Frank, you're your typical 5'6", so I think it's the same on my end as it is on your end. And Dave is typical 5'9". So and yeah, when I was when I was experimenting with the amp, I had quadrupled the power. So normally, barefoot, I run 90 watts, and I was well over 500 watts in that experiment that I was running both on the Friday night computer or the Friday night net, the 10-meter net, and in the little testing that I did with W298. So with the trip, Matt, I took a page out of your book and took a GoPro along with me and set that up on the dashboard of the car and decided to use that going up and coming back. And there was a little family get-together. We went up to Stone Lake. For those who don't know where that is, it's the northwestern portion of the state up in Sawyer County. And it's about 100 miles northeast of Chippewa Falls. So yeah, you take I-94 out west there, and just before you get to Eau Claire, you make a right turn to come up through Chippewa Falls, up towards Rice Lake, and then another 40-some miles north of that. And then you turn east about 17 miles, and you're at Stone Lake. So that's where that is. And family had a little, kind of a mini get-together with our friends and relatives, so that's the other reason I took the GoPro along, was just to kind of record some of that. So, but interestingly enough, nothing happened. I didn't, the GoPro did not pick up any unusual happenings on the road, or, nothing dramatic. So, I have about 80 gigabytes of 4K video that probably about the most boring thing you've ever seen. So there you go. I thought I'd just tell you guys about that a little bit. Of course, it's beautiful country up there, so I love driving up there. Wish I could do it more often. But yeah, my sisters live in Las Vegas, and they decided they wanted a summer place, so they decided to buy a place up there. They were born up there, up in Howard. So Stone Lake is just down the road from Howard. So that's where they, and that's where they, after they were older, that's where the family moved, was to Stone Lake. So that's kind of their dig that they go back to.
Dale, did you turn it back to me or did you time out your radio?
I think the radio timed out after 3 minutes, so I did turn it back to you. I don't know what you guys missed. I don't know if you can tell me.
I think what you were saying is you were turning it back to me right when it kicked out. That's the best I could tell.
All right, roger that. Well, let me just give you a sign, and then we'll take it away. 89DW, that's net control.
All right, thank you, Dale. And it sounds very interesting, although, like you say, nothing dramatic, but that's certainly a good thing. And I'll tell you what, I've had the GoPro for longer than what I've been using it to make dash cam videos. And the only reason I started doing that was because I started seeing so much, I started having close calls with crazy drivers on my drive to work. And I had one guy that for some reason, probably an insurance scammer, who was bound and determined to try and get me to rear end him. He was doing everything he could to try and get me to hit him. And that's what pushed me over the edge. I started recording all of my trips back and forth to work. And ever since I've been doing that, almost nothing happens. So the videos are sort of boring. Well, very boring, which I guess is a good thing. But I'll tell you what, something I've always admired that people do when they take long distance trips, they take a dash cam video and they'll upload it on YouTube at about 4 times speed, which seems to be the magic number. Makes for very good viewing. And that's something I've always wanted to do, and I guess I've been doing that. It wasn't until a couple of months ago that I could achieve the 4 times speed thing, and I finally started doing that. But what irritated me is that when I do that, the quality drops significantly. And I took some video of some good drives, things that would make interesting watching that way. But I got fed up with losing the quality. So all of those have been sitting on my drive waiting for me to figure out how to quadruple the speed without losing quality. And that stuff is really piling up. I should get down to earth and start working on those pretty soon. Otherwise, I'm going to run out of disk space. They go back a couple of months now. And recently, we took a small trip here locally through the Lower Kettle Moraine area, and I guess I've got some good video too that I've got to upload, and that's again I've got to figure out how to keep the quality first. I don't want to do it at normal speed because that makes for a boring video, but I don't want to lose the quality either. And I don't think I've been to Stone Lake, but I have certainly been in that area, if not just driving through. But I'm sure I have I've been to other places in that area too in the past. I've been all over the state at various times, and of course, about 15 years ago now, I did field service for a living, and I had to drive all over the state, which was kind of interesting. Go to various places, but just in very recent years here, my wife and I have been making an attempt to go camping in different places around the state. And because of other things going on here, obviously with the young children, that's been difficult to do. Last year we had a good one. We went out to Governor Dodge State Park, and 2 or 3 times a year, and I think we did that one last year, and that's been it. We haven't really gone anywhere except for a little short walk we took this last weekend here at Crystal Springs, which is part of the Kettle Moraine South Unit. It's a state park. It's something kind of obscure. The only reason we went there is because it's a short paved path. My wife needed to get some exercise, and that's the only way she could do it. And so I found that, and we went. And I don't think we would have gone there for any other reason. But it was a very interesting place. I say this to people all the time. There are so many small places of great interest all over this country and all over the world that people never take the time to go see. And I try to do it, but I don't get out very much. Anyway, I'm babbling again. Thank you, Dale, for the story. And Dave, WB9BWP, it's your turn from KC9UDX.
Okay. Usually I'm the guy that's babbling. Yeah, good story, Dale, and also, Matt, when you put the camera up there, of course things will decrease. We put the generator on the house there a few years ago when, after I got tired of trying to keep up with the sump pumps and stuff when we were having frequent power outages. Of course, since that was put in, I think it's run when needed, only like 20 minutes or so. I've had real dash cams. Had one in one of our cars. It was an HP, believe it or not, and it was very good. I was surprised at how good the video was, even at night. Unfortunately, it was one of these that clamps over your rearview mirror because its display is inside of the mirror. And on this car, my wife and I go back and forth on it all the time. So we're always readjusting the mirror, and the way the thing mounts was kind of like big fat rubber bands that hook onto some little tiny plastic clips, and then they go around the back of the mirror. Well, after enough of grabbing this and moving the mirror around with it, broke all the clips off. So, in fact, that was on the auction table at this past spring's club auction. And we bought one of the cheap, as seen on TV kind of ones, and I just looked at video the other day because we took that out of the car that was in what used to be my car, and not only was there no comparison, I would say don't buy that one. the resolution was poor, even though the numbers say it's not. Uh, but the reality says, yeah, it is. Anyway, and of course, we put those in after the big car got in two accidents of people being stupid, like turning right in front of the car and things like that. But, put those in and then there was nothing. Anyhow, that also brings to mind the guy, W5KUB. He goes to Dayton every year and he's got a booth indoors and he broadcasts the whole hamvention. He has people come by and stuff and he gives prizes away and things, but he's going and coming to hamvention. I forget where he's at, but it's a lengthy drive and he does live video for his entire trip, which I think a few years ago included him getting a speeding ticket on the way home. So everybody that was watching him got to see that live and in person. So I guess maybe sometimes you gotta be careful, when you're doing that kind of stuff. And in fact, he's doing the Huntsville Hempfest this weekend. I don't think he's doing his trip, but I saw a blurb that he's going to be at the Hempfest doing live video. So if you want to see what the Hempfest was like, you can tune in and see what's happening. In fact, one year, I'll just keep rambling on that story. I was watching his Dayton feed one year, and I wasn't paying attention. Actually, I had it running on the monitor in the office because I was doing some other stuff, and people would come by and he's talking to them. He had one of the former astronauts, at the table signing autographs and things. And I'm doing stuff, and I hear a female voice going, we're from Milwaukee. And I'm like, what? Who is that? And it was Dean and Darlene. I can't remember her call. Dean is KC9REN. But they had stopped the table to get the astronaut autographs. So that I saw you guys. You guys were live on the computer. Anyway, and no, I didn't tune over to see if I get the Illinois station yet. I've got really a giant pile of stuff down here that I have to dig through just to get to the radios right now. Cleaned out the car, and we had a shed put in a week before last, and so dig through the garage about what can go back in the shed, and then as you dig in through that stuff, it's like, oh, what's this? Or, oh, I didn't know I had this, and so some of that's down here too, and so this one I kind of get caught up with stuff, and always there's another pile that appears on the bin. Anyway, that sounds like a good time to turn it back to net control. So this is WB9BWP.
All right, thank you, Dave. And yeah, as far as regular dash cams, if I didn't already have a GoPro, I probably would have bought one, but the GoPro does all right service for that. Some of the serious dash cams do a lot better job than the GoPro, though. Of course, some of them will have built-in speed displays and other things, which are handy to have. And most of them have a better, they don't always have the fisheye lens that the GoPro has, and some of them have better night. What's the word I'm looking for? Oh, you guys know what I'm talking about. They work better at night. And I was gonna say, we cleaned out the shed today too. Not to be cleaning out the shed, but I was looking for a transfer case. I wanted to change out the transfer case in my daily driver, and it has a worn out NP231 in it, which is a part-time transfer case. When you put it in four-wheel drive, the chain in it is stretched and worn out, and it pops out of gear. It doesn't pop out of gear, but the chain slips, so you lose your traction. And I've got a whole pile of transfer cases here, and I wanted to put a different one in. I wanted to put a full-time case in so I can just leave it in four-wheel drive all the time. And the one that I found first, which I intended to put in, it turns out was not one that I could really feasibly put in there. It's an NP119, which only does four-wheel drive and has a viscous coupling in it. And the reason I don't want to do that is because the vehicle has got a disconnectable front axle, and I'm not 100% sure that that front axle isn't slipping too, and if it is, that will burn up that viscous coupling in a hurry. So I don't want to put that in there. I want to have a transfer case that I can shift to two-wheel drive. And I do have some of those, and I did find them by going in the shed and looking. It turns out I have two NP129s, which are full-time four-wheel drive with a viscous coupling plus two-wheel drive. And I've got, I think, three dead NP231s around here. One of them actually is not dead, but it's been converted to a transmission that almost nobody has, so it's kind of worthless. Anyway, now I'm babbling, but that's the shed cleaning out story. And I found a cylinder head for a Pontiac 151. If anybody knows anybody that needs one of those, I'd be willing to give that away. I hate to throw it in the dumpster, but that's probably what's going to end up with it. I have no use for it. And I found 4 more of those Delco 90 amp alternators. I've got those things coming out of my ears. Anyway, we're at the bottom of the list. Do we have any more check-ins for the 2 a.m. net coming out, please? All right, hearing none. I am not up against the gun here tonight because I do not have to go to work. I am off for the rest of this week. Unpaid. It's FMLA. They call it baby bonding. But I'm sure you guys don't want to be here all night, so we'll call this the 7-3 round. And Frank, it's your turn. W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, thanks, Matt. KC9UDX Net Control. This is W9JCC. And I took note when you were talking about refurbing things and putting the carbon compositors in, and that's exactly the opposite of what I've been doing. I figured those things, after having so many of them drift out on me, that and all the grief they cause, I'm not going to do that anymore. And for low power stuff, I tend to use the, I think it was the RN55 series. I think they're 8 watt, 1%, 100 power per million per degree C, and that'll be for 0 to 70, that's like 1.45 degrees, or 1.45%, and you can pretty much count on it. They hold pretty good. And found on the trip there to Stone Lake there, Dale, sounds like a good time. I do not have one of those dash cams, although there are times when I wish I did, because like Matt, we go to the gym every morning, and every now and then there's some crazy in front of me that does something that I could possibly use that camera for. And Dale mentioned he went from 90 watts up to 500. I was looking at the 100 to 200 is 3 dB, and then 200 to 400 is 3 more, and a little bit more, about 3 more to go to 800, but so 3, 6, probably around 7 or 8 dB improvement there, Dale. You'd have to get the calculator out to get it exact. So I don't have too much more. Good hearing everybody tonight. We're staying in most of the time because the weather's been a little bit muggy, but we do get out, do a little gardening from time to time, and go for a walk when we can. And that's kind of been it here. We go to the gym every morning, 5 days a week. So with that, 73 style, and I will listen out. Back to Net Control, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank. And I'll tell you what, it's funny because having the dash cam pointing forward, one of the things I've noticed is that nothing seems to happen in front of me anymore. But there's times when it would be handy to have one facing rearward or to the side sometimes. And I could turn the GoPro around, and I can actually take it out of its mount and point it anywhere I want. But that's not a good thing to be doing while you're driving. Just lately, I've had quite a few things happen behind me that I'd like to get on camera, but I don't think I'm ready to invest in a rear-facing camera just yet. And the other thing about the GoPro with that fisheye lens is even when you do have a close call, it doesn't look like a close call in the video. I had a truck driver cut me off on 43 southbound coming home from work one day, and I really had to stop on the brakes. And I'll tell you what, I keep my brakes in excellent, perfect condition, and if I didn't, I would have been in a real pickle there. And it doesn't show it on the camera at all. It looks pretty graceful on the camera. Anyway, yeah, I can understand where you're coming from changing out the resistors. It depends on what I'm doing, especially if it's a lower value. I'd like to put those in there just to kind of keep things original looking. I know nobody ever looks underneath the chassis anyway, but I think about that stuff for some reason. Just like capacitors, I always try to keep the giant can capacitors in place even if they're not connected to the circuit. I've actually even gone through the trouble of gutting capacitors and installing new ones inside. I've done that with the tubular ones, and I've done that with the wax and paper ones, which is a little tedious, but the end result is kind of satisfying. Next we have Dale, AB9DW. It's your turn on the 7-3 round. Go ahead.
All right, then, Matt, AB9DW here. Yeah, the other reason why I decided to use the GoPro is because just before we went on our trip, Mary was in a fender bender, and that led to me trying to. It was the other guy's fault. He got cited. He was actually backing up down an on-ramp. It's the on-ramp that goes to Highway 100 from Rawson Avenue. I'm sure Dave's familiar with that. She was traveling westbound on Rawson Avenue and turned left onto the on-ramp, only to find that this guy in a ton-and-a-half truck was backing up down the ramp without looking where he was going or what was happening behind him. So he ran right into my wife. She stopped dead, and then he backed right into her. Peeled the hood back pretty good. We had about $5,400 worth of damage. It's all fixed up now, but the problem is that guy's insurance company. He has commercial insurance because he's a trucking company. All they did was stonewall me. She kept telling me, the adjuster kept telling me that we couldn't get a hold of the driver. I said, well, why do you need to get a hold of the driver? She said, look at the police report. She said, well, we don't necessarily have to be here. So that tells me right there that they weren't going to be adjusting anything or settling anything anytime soon. So I had to go back to my insurance company because we need the car back. But unfortunately, then I had to pay a deductible. So now I'm going to try and go after that other insurance company for the deductible. So one thing led to another, and that's what got me to thinking about, maybe I should put a camera on the dash and see if maybe I can have the same experience Matt did, where he puts it on the dash and nothing ever really happens again after that. So I'm hoping for that. So anyway, guys, it was nice to chat with you tonight, and maybe we'll have a chance to do this in the next go around. I forget exactly what that date is, but I'm sure Matt will let us know. So you guys take care in the meantime. And we'll be talking to you. 89DW here, Asking Net Control.
All right, thank you, Dale. I'm sorry to hear about your wife. I know exactly what you're going through with the insurance companies and stuff. My wife had a similar sort of situation. She had a T-bone accident. A teenager admittedly was texting and driving and ran a red light and T-boned my wife, and there's nothing my wife could have done to prevent the accident. But of course we had to fight tooth and nail that one, and actually we hired a lawyer that took us to the cleaners, which put a real bad taste in my mouth about lawyers, I'll tell you that. But that's a long story, and it happened a long time ago, so I won't go into that. But Dave, WB9BWP, it's your turn on the 7-3 round from KC9UDX.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Insurance companies and lawyers, that pretty much covers a certain spectrum of the population here. But unfortunately, you almost need the lawyer to deal with the insurance company, especially nowadays. Um, and it's a good thing your wife's okay, Dale. And yeah, I know that's that. And, it is always interesting what some people actually do. Like the one accident that we had before we put the camera in the car was a guy that made a right turn without checking to see how traffic is going, and he decided he needed to be all the way over in the left lane instantly, again, not looking around, and then was like totally surprised when, oh, gee, I've just ran into another car. Where did that come from? Anyhow, I heard everybody tonight, not much noise. Dale's the closest, so he does move the F meter, and but both Matt and I didn't even have to really resort to using YouTube at all. Heard everybody just fine, and let's hope it continues that way. So, 73 to you guys, and I'm sure we'll cross paths here somewhere down the line if nothing else on the radio. And if not, then hey, see you next month. And maybe I'll even be on time. So, once again, 73 to everybody out there, and anybody else that's listening and afraid to talk. And well, there's obviously other people on YouTube there, since there were those comments. Anyhow, I'm dragging this out. So, with that, this is WB9 DWP. Back to nothing.
All right, thank you, Dave. Something I've been meaning to do, and I don't know if I'll ever get around to it. I've been meaning to modify the preamble for the net, and I just want to reword what's there. I've been meaning to do that for a very long time, but also I'd like to add some kind of words to the YouTube audience. Now I don't know if that's technically legal, so I guess I haven't. That's one of the things stopping me from doing it so far. I'd have to figure that one out. But it's if we are talking amongst each other about something going on YouTube, I suppose that's legal. So anyway, I was going to tell another story here about insurance companies and bad drivers, but I guess I'll save you guys from that one. And I will say this concludes the 2 a.m. net. Feel free to rag chew on this frequency after my transmission. We will meet again on the 11th of September. And as always, I look at the calendar at this time, and I wonder where all the time went. It's hard to believe it's August already. Until then, this is KC9UDX. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Frank, Dale, and Dave, we had a great time tonight. 7-3, and good night.